It's Tuesday afternoon, 4 p.m. in Switzerland, and it's Space Café Web Talk time. Our Space Café Web Talk, 33 minutes with Christian Hauglie-Hanssen, will begin soon. And thanks for joining us for our talk today about an update on Norway's space ambitions. As always, we appreciate your participation and ongoing feedback. I'm Torsten Kriening, your host today and publisher of SpaceWatch.Global. We are a Switzerland-based online platform for information in and about space and new space activities in a geopolitical context. And I'm super proud today to see today also new people that are joining us. So thank you very much for being here. I know many of you are already familiar with our website, our bi-weekly and daily newsletters, and the Space Café podcast. Our latest episode, released this morning, features Barbara Belvisi of Interstellar Lab and the future of plant growth in space and on Earth. And for all our fans of audio content, we have new episodes in the Space Café Radio where we talk with interesting people on the road, on shows and on conferences. We also keep our fan shop open online for you to support us actively and become a space watcher. And I already talked about our supporter program to keep our independent work alive. And if you have missed any of our previous web talks, we have an archive available on our website in the event section and on YouTube. So, last week I spoke with Johanna Bergström Rose in Kiruna. So it is just logical to stay in the region. And as the region is a very vibrant area when it comes to space. And so I'm super happy and absolutely grateful to introduce today Christian Hauglie-Hanssen, the Director General of the Norwegian Center, the Norwegian Space Agency. And I hope I pronounced your name more or less correctly, and also I could show off with my Norwegian here. So with that, a very warm welcome, Christian Hauglie-Hanssen, in our show.
Thank you very much, Torsten, and I'm very happy to be here. I think you did quite well in pronouncing both the name and the Norwegian Center. It's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. So, to just introduce you to our audience, so Christian holds his position since June 2018. So actually, just before the pandemic, you entered this new job. And prior to joining the Norwegian Space Agency, he has 30 years plus of experience from the defense and aerospace industry, of which 10 years have been specially with space business and engineering. And he holds an MSc in physics from the University of South Florida with a focus on electro-optics and spectroscopy. That's pretty cool. So again, Christian, welcome to our Space Café today. Let's kick it off. About a year ago, I spoke with Mari Elton, who joined recently your team, about the Norwegians' plan to move from oil to orbit, as you called it. It is very impressive to see the variety of activities you envisioned at that point of time, or she explained to us. Can you give us a first overview of what happened in the last year and where you stand on that?
Sure. It's a very interesting question, and it's a big question too, because it fathoms really everything both within the space and outside. And I think the three topics that I would mention, first of all, the green agenda is also hitting Norway in terms of what are we going to do? How are we going to handle this, both the economy going forward and our engagement with oil and gas, which has been going on now for more than 50 years. So there is a lot of political discussion on in general what to do with this and how to move forward in developing new technology and so forth. The other major event is that the Norwegian government and the Norwegian Parliament decided to join the EU space program. We have been a participant to Galileo and the Copernicus since the onset more than 10 years ago, but now with the extension of the EU space programs to also including the space situational awareness and GovSatcom really also extends the engagement that we can see and the arena that we would like to play on the national level. The third thing is that we have a new government. We've had a conservative government for 8 years. Now there's a Labour Party and the Central Party, and and they have taken the opportunity now to state a political platform covering many things, but one of them is the green shift, like I'm sure most governments in Europe is doing. The other thing is that they have specific attention towards some key space issues, which is very, very interesting. So I would say that in terms of your specific question from oil to orbit, it's probably more on the application side. How can we support by using space applications, transitioning into green hydrogen, blue hydrogen, using that and using space technology and space monitoring through Earth observation in supporting this green agenda in total.
Wow, these are three big points you mentioned, but I would love to ask you how it is within your government, as we in Berlin, in Germany, are facing the same. And I think as everything goes right tomorrow, we might have a new chancellor in the house. So, and also the Greens are being part of the agenda or of the government, and potentially there will be a shift here as well. But we are not here talking about Germany. We talk here today about Norway, what is much more cooler. So I would like to take a closer look into your way of working with, and you alluded to that, national versus institutional European programs. And what are they about, and what is their focus particularly? Because, I mean, you can't do everything, obviously.
Obviously, we can't do everything. And that is the beauty of being a part of the European Space Agency, where we have been a member since 1987. That is that this is the platform we are developing our IP, our space technology, and we have the chance to participate in the large development programs in Europe. For instance, the satellites going into delivered to EUMETSAT, and also, as I mentioned, Copernicus satellites, where Norway has a particular interest in terms of Earth observation. Mm-hmm. So it's important when you talk about the national agenda to be careful that you keep a balance, because obviously there's a reason for ESA's existence, is that it's a playground for all the 22 member states in order to join forces and do great things in terms of science and national user services and so forth. But we are seeing now that there is a trend, and it's tied closely to new space, cheaper technology, smaller satellites, that the national space agenda should be complementary to what you're doing on an institutional level. And this is not unique to Norway, but I believe that you mentioned the Nordic countries, for several reasons, may have particular ways of leveraging the national space programs in conjunction with the ESA programs and the EU programs. So the focus is, as it should be, to get the most out of your money. You need to have real services. You need to develop healthy industries that are able to compete, and by that, both having a position of serving the nation, to use a sort of a big phrase, at the same time to have a pragmatic approach. I think Norway has a very pragmatic approach towards our space industry for doing this, for participating in these programs, but also using them on national level. And I could mention several examples, and I will come back to that.
Absolutely, I'm very keen to learn more about it. I mean, but let's start with a why question. So, not why we are here. That's might be too big. But I mean, we all, I would say, 90% of the people here in the room today are space nerds. Yeah. So, and have an interest. So, this generic question is: does have space an additional value to the society? In your case, in Norway. Or is it just a homemade hype theme because we all love space? So how do you sense that, and how you work with that?
I think that it's actually good that there is some hype around space, because it's people talk about it as being sexy. It's very the sharp end of technology, and there are many good reasons for liking space. At the same time, as you said, I'm an engineer and a physicist by education, and I love being part of the space programs, being part of a team for developing new technology and sending it into space. It's very, very exciting. At the same time, my responsibility and my task as a Director General of a space agency is to look at what is the real use of this. And you're asking, does Norway have particular features? I would say yes. If you look at our geographical position, we have a very long coastline. Our industry and our national economy is to a large degree based on fisheries and the maritime domain, oil and gas. We are located to the high north, so we have a clear Arctic agenda, and we also have a geopolitical agenda with our border towards our friends to the east, the Russians. So this plays into how can we use space applications. One obvious reason is that our coastal areas, our ocean areas is about five times the size of our land, which means that these huge areas, they are in the high north with bad weather. It's dark a lot of the year. So we need to use satellites, both in terms of communication, in terms of surveillance of those areas, in terms of monitoring of fisheries and maritime traffic and so forth. So I think that we are in a fortunate position that we can actually tick off a lot of those things, saying that, well, space is good. Many times space is a supplement to what you are doing and what you have on national infrastructure. In this case, space may be the only way to solve your problems. So that's our advantage, I would say.
Can you go into these specifics or specific programs you talked earlier, and what they bring for the society in Norway?
Well, to start off with our national programs, is that the early 2001 was starting to considering again how to monitor maritime traffic, and this was a joint program between our Defense Research Lab, our coastal authorities, industries, and it was a consideration, how can we do this in a very, very efficient way. So the first national Norwegian satellite, AIS-SAT-1, was launched in 2010, and this sort of spurred an idea that this could be actually developed to have a real value, both directly for Norway, but also part of the international cooperation, for instance, with EMSA. So obviously, the monitoring of global maritime traffic is a global issue. And we have a large tradition in working in the maritime domain. So by this, we could also participate internationally. I mentioned fisheries. Illegal fishery is a huge problem. And Norway has a tradition also of participating in these discussions through the United Nations and trying to see how can we contribute in terms of solving such challenges. It's a huge amount of money that ends up in sort of the black market, stealing actually the fish quota for legal fisheries, and this is also high on the agenda. So it also has an international, interpolitical flavor to this. And I mentioned the security policy, which is tied into this. And the latest addition that we are seeing is this, the Arctic broadband satellite mission, which is underway with two highly elliptical orbital satellites that will go in a high inclination orbit of 65 degrees or something, and with the apogee over the north, the northern regions. That will provide broadband communication in a way that has not been provided before, because most of the large satellite communication infrastructure is oriented around the equator, as you know. So this is adding to this feature, and it will also be an international capacity.
Wow. I mean, you have these really ambitious programs, but let's talk about the other side. So what are the obstacles you're facing in taking this vision into action? I mean, and choose the obstacles you like to talk about. So from regulation about environmental impact, societal aspects. I mean, not everyone loves what we do, and why to spend money in space. I mean, there's a rationale, and I think the numbers are the same as for Norway as for everyone else in Europe. So $1 spent or €1 spent is €5 back. So, but how to bring that over, how to convey this message, how to excite everyone on that. So maybe you want to allude a little bit on the obstacle and, if possible, also how you overcame them.
I think you're pointing to something very important. Again, you have to have a realistic view of your obstacles and never letting down your guard in terms of what you have to achieve in terms of communicating the agenda and why this is sensible to spend money on. As in any country, you have a competition with healthcare, with education, with general services in the society, and the question always arises: why should you use money on space? And the observation that we do is that the knowledge of space. I mean, everyone has heard about SpaceX, but SpaceX is not representative for what is the real core issues of any average space country. But it does provide attention. People are aware that there is development, it is commercialization. This summer you had, and I was interviewed many times on this emerging commercial space traffic, going into suborbital with Blue Origin and so forth. And people ask me, how is this interesting? Why is this relevant? And I say, maybe it isn't. But for one thing, it drives technology. So that part is taken care of. At the same time, it helps us to have our discussion with our politicians, because that's where it all starts. This is really at the heart of it, and this is not unique for Norway, but any country that has an ambition in space, you need to convince your politicians that this is of real need or real use. So to be specific, next year you have the what is called the ESA Ministerial Conference. The November is called the CMIN 22. That is where all the 22 ESA member states is going to dedicate their money into the future programs. So we need to say that, okay, starting from where we are, why are we going to spend money on this? And the challenge that has been put on our space agency is how can this be used in a wider sense, not only on science, not only on providing parts for the European launchers, Vega and Ariane, but how is this applicable for our Ministry of Defense? How is it applicable for our Ministry of Justice or Ministry of Foreign Affairs? Mm-hmm. So this is a task that is now founded in our national space strategy, but it takes time, because you have to sort of plow your way into all these other issues that the politicians are aware of. And that is probably the biggest obstacle, and it's not going away. You need to continuously argue for, we are spending money, as you're saying you're putting €1 in, you're getting €5 out. Well, that's easy to say, but you also have to justify, is it really true? So we are doing social economic analyses on this, on all these proposals that we're doing to our government, saying, okay, we realize that this is a complex issue, but we are actually trying to do the calculations. We have third parties looking into this and saying, if we invest in R&D in ESA, if we participate in the EU space programs in this and this way, in the end, our society will benefit. And we can demonstrate that because we have a more secure society, we have better fisheries, we're taking better care of the environment, we have providing infrastructure that is both safe and reliable and secure in the high north and so forth. So it's a very complex issue you're addressing, but it's also very interesting. I think this is a great part of having the job that I have.
Absolutely, and I mean, chapeau what you guys are doing and how you do it, and also kudos to Josef Aschbacher to point out the one of the issues you mentioned earlier about SpaceX and how they dictate right now what goes on in space. And I think that's
Yes,
very important to address that.
Yes, and the discussion with Joseph and ESA in general is very important, because ESA also needs to evolve. It needs to comply with the national needs and how the market develops. And I know Joseph has a big heart for addressing these things in terms of commercialization and providing financing for these startups and so forth. And we're working together on that.
Great. We have to talk about Adoya, and one of the other words that looks so simple, but I'm quite sure it's mispronounced. So this morning we had a German press briefing here with the DLR together with ESA Aerospace about the Virgin flight from your spaceport. And I know it was also reported on SpaceWatch.Global. This is a lighthouse project now brought forward by the government in Norway. And we like to hear more here about it. Can you give us an update on what's planned for your launch pad and the ecosystem around? Because it's not just launching a rocket. There is an entire environment around.
That's right. It's not just launching a rocket, and I think it's fair to make a brief reference to the history, because it started in 1962. There have been made more than 1,400 launches of sounding rockets, and the observation that was made at the time in the 60s was that, hey, well, we're doing these great launches, but that leaves part of our staff idle for part of the time. And that's when they started supporting research programs in the Auroras. They started supporting testing of defense equipment, because you can fire military equipment and do operations because you have these large ocean areas. So one was trying to look at this in sort of a holistic picture. The idea of launching to orbit has been discussed for more than 20 years, as it's been done in Kiruna and other places. So this is sort of a friendly competition at this time, but it is materializing because we are seeing the development in technology. We're seeing, in particular, also the development of cheaper and smaller and very agile small satellites. And this is the market driver that we have been looking for. It's anyone's guess how this will develop. There are projections, as anyone can see, that, we have 25,000 small satellites. I hope personally that will not happen, but it will be a more sensible and more responsible way of utilizing the LEO orbits. But that being said, after having worked on the boundary conditions and the business case, Andøya has certain particular features that makes it favorable for such an operation. Again, the large ocean areas, you can launch into a trajectory both in sun-synchronous orbit and also in a pure polar orbit. So that is in place. The other thing is that the air traffic is very low. You have some routes going over the North Pole, but they're not directly interfered by potential launches from Andøya. You have a downrange over Svalbard where you can support the launches. Both you have a safe place to drop your first and second stage. You have the KSAT, the SvalSat operation with dozens of antennae that can support the launch, and also have an operation where they support also launches from Kourou and other places. So there's so much there. It's a temperate zone. It's a military base with a large, both a harbor and a very large airfield where you could take down aircraft and so forth. So there are many good things that draw in the right direction. We are humble in terms of that this is real. This is a market in full development. It is competition, and we're working very hard, and the team at Andøya Space is working really, really hard now to do this. So getting down to the real stuff, now the government has now announced that they are supporting it with money. It's on the political agenda, and now they've just released the contracts for doing the digging and construction. The plan is that the launch pad will be right on the coastline, partly extending into the shallow waters there. And one of these pads will be dedicated for Oyster Aerospace. That's part of the deal, because they need a reliable and stable launch infrastructure, and it is to the advantage of the total business case. And this will be developed. The first launch, which will happen in about 1 year time, that is the plan, the end of next year, will occur from a partly improvised infrastructure with containers and so forth. But the actual launch pad will be there with the whole concrete structure. So I think we're on a very good path, and we have all the regulations in place. And there's been discussions with the fishermen out there, because we need to protect the environment. One thing that I should mention is that Andøya will be a green launch operation. We are focusing on no toxic fuels and taking care of the environment. So I think they're good to go. But obviously, I visited Oyster Aerospace a couple of weeks ago with DLR. It's a great team. Being a manufacturing guy, you know, the 3D manufacturing and the carbon structures that they're making is totally awesome. So we're looking forward to continue to work with them.
Cool. Just a practical question. I mean, you said you're going to build the launch pad now as we speak, and it should be ready then next year. So how do you put concrete down at minus whatever degrees you have right now up in the north? I mean, in winter, it must be, is there a magic behind it?
Not really. First of all, this is a coastal climate, so it never really gets that cold. No, this is true. At the same time, doing construction work in Norway happens all the way around. So working in sub-zero degrees is something that Norwegian construction companies are used to. I talked to some of the civil engineering or the couple of the civil engineering company that are involved there when I was there 2 weeks ago, and they're using mass from local dugouts, and construction site to put the mass into to create the basis for the launch pad and the infrastructure. So actually doing the concrete work and that is not the biggest obstacle. It's right now, I think it's more a logistical thing that there's a lot of stuff that needs to be in place.
Okay, but as you said, there are ship routes up there, so that might be a way. As we just getting the yellow flags from the production team already for our 33 minutes, we spoke about the ecosystem and how the government supports our companies and the project. So, but on another level, so how can someone engage with or in Norway? So is it open to everyone, or can knock on your doors and say, hey, I want to place my company there? What are the rules and regulations, and what are you interested in?
Well, the first place to knock on the door is at our Norwegian Space Agency. I mean, you find our website and there are people to contact there. So everyone is welcome who has a good idea, who wants to cooperate, and we will direct you and discuss with you who would be the right people to talk to in Norway. We are very well connected on government level and on industrial level and on the various institutes. So what are we looking for? I think that in terms of bilateral cooperation, you need to be pragmatic. You need to say, okay, this is real. You know, this is what we need. This is what you need. That is why we're talking about this. Specifically on Andøya and the launch operation there are a lot of people knocking on the door. And this is a good thing because, again, you're talking about the whole, the whole infrastructure, the whole system up there with support services and everything that comes in addition to that. So the thing that I can say is please take contact and we will provide you with a proper guidance. Naturally, a launch operation is not for everyone. It needs to be considered who has business going there, how can this support both the launch operator and also the launcher providers like ISAR Aerospace and others. So I would hesitate to give specific guidance on that, but to be sure, this is a large operation with a large rocket. Everything tied to security needs to be taken care of. But we are looking for opportunities now going forward in how this can be developed in a sound manner and create industrial opportunities for those who have real value to contribute with.
Cool. Before we take one or two questions from the audience, I would like to ask a last one. What are you most proud in terms of Space Norway and your work?
Well, you can answer that many ways, but I am proud that we have the competence that is required, even for a small nation, to have real discussions through through ESA as the primary institutional organization, and that we have been able to develop national industries and national services through this cooperation. We have very skilled people at the agency that work really hard and take part in all the committees and all the program boards, trying to investigate how can this be of benefit both to our industry and to our national needs. So I'm proud of what we're doing. I think we have a great team, and we are developing our capability also more in the bilateral direction for, like I said, national programs, bilateral programs that come in addition to what we're doing on institutional level.
Cool. Let's take one question, and I would like to pick the question from Christian Unfried from Vienna. So, how do the Arctic countries work together on such as Earth observation and navigation of the polar regions? Can you give us a hint on that?
There are no explicit cooperation agreements in that sense. I mean, you have the Arctic Council, where the Arctic countries are participating. You have there also Russia and the United States, Canada, and so forth. So that is the basic arena for trying to solve this. So I think that in terms of the protection of the Arctic and utilization of the Arctic, I think it's a good idea that this is a more holistic picture and not simply only bilateral discussions. I think that is it may be not the full answer, but that's the approach that we're having on this.
Okay, thank you. Then the last one, and I combine the two from Anders and Jesus together. Jesus, I really can recommend you to go to the Space Agency website to see all the specific what they do different. I think that's a great source. But the question both of you have is, will Anoya, and you don't speak the D, I recognize, so Anoya, our space center, be able to support human space flight with the upcoming upgrades to launch facilities there, and what is the short and medium term goals? So maybe you can combine that together as a final question.
Manned spaceflight for putting man into orbit or a human being into orbit is not part of the plan. The launch installation will support payloads up to 1 metric ton and in a little bit in excess of that with the launches that are being planned. So that is not part of it. And also the manned space flight is exceedingly complex. One could look into the future and saying maybe commercial suborbital flights could be provided, and certainly the infrastructure is there that could support such operation, but it's not in the planning now.
Okay, and I would also say that the position is the wrong one to reach the right orbits to go to ISS or even to the moon. But that's just from my orbital dynamics or knowledge. So I think
that's absolutely true. Yes, that's true.
Good. Thank you very much. I'm afraid that we have to come to an end now, but be sure we will continue talking with you, with all the other players in the region about what's going on in the far north. And I also talking about the Space Café Norway, what we are about to establish the next year, and our Space Café Sweden to talk about more specific things from the region. So before we finish, please do not miss what's going on our end or in the next 2 weeks before the year will end. So on Thursday this week, we have another Moriba's Vox Populi by the wonderful Moriba Jar, obviously about the Russian ASAT test. He will discuss with his absolute excellent panel. So, and then on the 14th next week, I have the chance to speak with Pacôme Ravillon, the CEO of Euroconsult, live from the World Satellite Business Week in Paris. I mean, I intended to be there physically in Paris, which will not, or due to there's a pandemic at our doorsteps, so I'm refused to go over. So on the 15th, we have our next Space Café Brazil by Ian Grossner, and on the 16th, we will end the year with our Space Café Australia by Annie Handmar. Thereafter, we will give you some time to enjoy your holidays, but we will be back on the 4th of January. Stay tuned for further information, and we will do the announcement then as of next week. All these events are online on Eventbrite. As always, we would like to hear your feedback, so please check in with us on Twitter, on Facebook, or LinkedIn. Don't forget to sign up to our daily or bi-weekly newsletters. And you know it, if you like to treat yourself with something special, become a Space Watcher today, or it can't be easier, or help us in the supporter program, and that's very, very serious for us. Thank you very much, Christian, for this inspiring talk and being my guests today. And thank you again to the entire team behind the scenes for doing their great job and run it as smooth as it ran today. Even so, there seems to be some obstacles with Zoom today, but everything was so far so good. I hope you all will stay safe and stay healthy, and thanks for joining us. Hope to see you next week. In the meantime, visit our website or follow us on social media. And don't forget, become a Space Watcher. Thank you very much.